Welcome to Burn the Ship. Thank you
Thank you.
for allotting the time, first of all. I appreciate you coming, especially for Friday afternoon. But means a lot. This is the podcast where we connect professionals with entrepreneurs that can help you go all in on your business. We want to talk to people that have walked the walk and talked the talk in small business and go through all of the challenges that we experience as entrepreneurs. And hopefully, we can kind of bottle up some of those skills that keep you moving forward, and we can pass it on to our audience, some of that next generation of entrepreneurs, and teach them what it looks like to do business well. Because there's really no tried and true way to learn how to start a small business. I think everybody has a very unique experience and a very unique story in both of those aspects. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your business.
Sure. I'm Paige Love, and I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a certified specialist in sport dietetics. And my business is a wellness nutrition practice, but I
Mm-hmm.
also have that niche in working with very active people from the recreational athlete all the way to the professional athlete. And I have been in business for 33 years.
Nice,
So I've
congratulations.
been doing it for a while. My own business. Luckily for me, the entrepreneur part wasn't scary because my dad was an entrepreneur.
Oh
He
wow.
he had started his own company, real estate company, totally different business, but it just was kind of a natural thing for me. I had that modeled. You can
Yeah.
just start a company. So I didn't have a business background. For those of you not familiar with nutrition, you have a bachelor's degree in science. In dietetics, we're now required to have a master's degree in science. So my master's degree is in sport nutrition, but in the science area. So no business training formally. So I definitely hit the ground running, except for my modeling from my dad. And what I realized right off the bat, I did have a job initially in a sport medicine setting right out of grad school, which luckily was a very large company and networked me all around Atlanta. I've been in Atlanta this entire time. And so that helped me kind of set the stage, and also just learning from them, like how are they marketing their services. So sport medicine is like the people that treat injuries, from work site injuries to the high school athlete having an injury. So they were very good at marketing themselves and doing presentations and being offering free services to high schools. So I got an example right off the bat in my first job of how people market their business, and I was one of those people they put out there to market the sport medicine business and the sport nutrition realm. So when I decided to go out on my own when they were bought by a bigger company and started my own business, I was already networked all around Atlanta through that company. And because they were sold out, I could keep those connections I already had. So I continued to do talks in high schools for free to different sports teams, and that generated referrals of young athletes, parents bringing their young athletes to me. I was also connected to professional sport through them. I'm going to age myself here, but at the time, this is before you guys were born, there was an indoor soccer team called the Atlanta Attack Professional Soccer, way before Atlanta United, obviously, and they were doing the sport medicine services for them. So I became their sport dietitian, and it was just a part-time consulting gig. So a lot of my work is just like part-time consulting type things that add up to keeping me very busy. I mostly see people one-on-one, but I love doing like presentations. And I found, I guess the takeaway I'd say for the audience is if you're not afraid to put yourself out there and do a presentation, like to a community group, to a church group, to a women's group, to a JCC, anything like that, you're marketing yourself to a big group of people. And typically when I do a talk, I get one or two individual referrals from that, like
Mm-hmm.
people who just heard me talk that want to come and see me. So I see it as business generating, and I enjoy doing it. It breaks up the monotony of just being one-on-one with somebody
For
in an
sure.
office. I get out in the community. Plus, I feel like I'm giving a helpful message for the community. So that's one way I've marketed myself. I found that really helpful. Um, I've also, over the years, developed, especially working with eating disorders. What I realized really quickly is that athletes who need help typically have something gone awry. Maybe they're very underweight, they're trying to gain weight, maybe For example, a very common thing I see is a female cross-country runner or a dancer or a swimmer who is adolescent, growing, really high energy needs. They're not quite meeting their energy needs, and there's a scenario or syndrome called female athlete triad, or REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport. And they start having problems like stress fractures or not having their menstrual cycle, low energy, fatigue issues. So a real medical issue that parents are concerned about. So I have found that if I also kind of got into the psychological side, and I'm not doing this psychologist role, but got training in that, I was able to better handle that type of athlete. So I guess about maybe, I don't know, 8 years into my career, I dove in and took a job at a psych hospital for 2 years full-time, as I still had my part-time business going, and I was just building up my clientele so that I could learn about all the psychological diagnoses, the meds, the treatment team, how to help people. Because generally, when someone doesn't eat well enough or they've lost appetite, they might be experiencing anxiety or depression. And so I wanted to better understand it. So I did that full time. So those 2 jobs, working in the sport medicine and working in the psych hospital, gave me a really good background to then really fully build my business. So I'm 3-dimensional. I have a wellness, just general sport, and then I have an eating disorder component of what I do. So now I get tons of referrals, like that job again in the psych hospital, just like the sport medicine job, gave me connections to all kinds of therapists, psychiatrists, doctors, who still refer to me to this day. That first job, all the sport medicine specialists, athletic trainers, orthopedic doctors still refer to me today. And we're talking 33 years later, I still have connections to those people. So cultivating your connections as you have different jobs. If you're a new person starting a job and you're working full-time for a company, but you want to get out and start your own company, those connections you make in each job can stay with you if you keep cultivating them, staying in touch with those people. Like I used to send my newsletters out to a humongous amount of people via email, and I still get referrals by doing that. A lot of these old connections that I had. So I really kept a good, these days it's all electronic, but just a good composite list of all the connections I had in different specialty areas that are potential referral sources.
Sure.
So,
is your main client young athletes?
Well, that's just one example. No, I would say that's a chunk of it, but I also just work with the recreational athlete that, could be the weekend warrior kind of person. I played college tennis, so I have a niche in tennis. So I do a lot with recreational tennis all the way up to professional tennis. One of my other niches that's just more straight sport nutrition is I work with the women's and men's professional tennis tours, and I travel to tournaments and see people. So I'm also out in the open at a tournament. I'm in a player's lounge area. I'm getting access to a lot of people. Again, it's just not being afraid to put yourself out there. And I always have something people always make fun of me about, but like I'm a handout maniac. I'm trying to get more electronic, but I'm old school. I'm in the days before things were very electronic. So I still, when I am at a place like that, I'll have like a table full of handouts and all kinds of things, information for people to take it with them. So also just the written word or the electronic word that you can use as a marketing tool. I write an article for a regional sport magazine. I use those 4-color copies of that in an electronic form or giving it out as a marketing piece. I rework a lot of the things that I've done in different venues. So like I might tweak something to be specific in a running sport or specific in a general community. So I rework a lot of the stuff that I've made in a written form, as well as even my presentations. I'll tweak presentations to meet the audience. And I'm always thinking marketing. How am I going to reach more people with these things? And I never go someplace without my business cards. I never go someplace without my brochures. I never go. I always have my, in fact, I have it in my briefcase. I have my newsletter with me. I follow up with sending things electronically to people. Again, the more you put this stuff in front of people, they're going to remember you. The more visible you are, they're going to remember you. That's why I like doing this podcast, because it's another venue to reach people.
For sure.
I'm very open to, and don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and try different forms of media marketing. I've done podcasts, I've done radio interviews, I've done TV interviews. None of these that I have formal training to do, just was willing to kind of step into it and do it. And again, it's kind of fun. You're changing things up. You're doing something different. It's not as scary as you think it will be. You know, a lot of people are afraid to do speeches, but you do a few and you're like, okay, this isn't so bad. And usually the audiences are very forgiving. They're there, you know, particularly if you're doing things for free to do marketing. People are very, you know, kind and not judgmental and know that you're giving of your time. So I have just found, you know, these are non-threatening ways to break up my work day, but I feel productive, that I'm getting a healthy word out, a healthy message out to people, and at the same time marketing myself.
For sure. And what is that interaction like when somebody sends you a referral? Like, are you, what are the things that you're helping them with? What are the things that you're selling them?
Oh, okay. So as a dietitian, what I am mostly doing is sitting down with somebody kind of like you and I are, but I'm walking through their whole health history. We're looking at things that are specific to any kind of nutritional related health issue that they have. Most health issues do have a nutrition connection, so I'm looking at people's physicals, you know, their results from their physical, their blood pressure, their labs. If anything's out of whack, I'm looking at what nutritional deficiency might be causing a low, or what nutritional excess might be causing a high. Help obviously reviewing their food intake. I have people do a pretty thorough questionnaire before they come in and see me. I review that before they come in. I already have a prepared, and this is another marketing thing, folder for them of topics that are related to what I've seen in their nutritional questionnaire, things that we're going to be hitting on. If they're an athlete in a particular sport, it's going to be sport-specific nutrition information for that sport, like a runner or a tennis player. If it's somebody that has an eating disorder, it's going to be eating disorder-specific handout material. I've also developed, and I use these in my sessions, and part of what a dietitian do is provides lots of information. We try not to overwhelm people, but lots of information on nutritional approaches to help them with whatever they're dealing with. So over the years, having been in this field for a while, I developed 10 workbooks that are handouts that I now use in sessions. And I have a general wellness one, I have a disordered eating one, I have a sport one, and then I have about 10 sport-specific subgroupings of those. So I have one for basketball, I have one for football, I have one for cross country, I have one for swimming, tennis, softball, you know, so all the common high school sports basically. And so I try to make my information in a session very unique and specialized to whatever that person's issue is. So I spend an hour and a half with the person in an initial session. By the time they walk out of the door, they've got behavioral objectives, things that they've worked on with me. It's not just me telling them, do this, do this, do this. It's kind of like, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a girl who was struggling with a disordered eating issue, and she was getting on the scale twice a day, which is not something I recommend because it creates obsession, it creates body judgment. The scale, for women in particular, typically does not cause a positive mood after they get on the scale. There's been research to show that when women step on a scale, even if it says something that they were hoping it would say, it's not good enough. There's a judgment associated with it. There's a negative mood response. So I try to help my clients get off of the scale. I actually weigh most of my female clients backwards. So we had a goal around bringing down the scale weights. So she was obsessing on that. So she and I kind of bantered back and forth on it, and she agreed to take one day off a week. That's a goal. That's an obtainable goal. So I try to have the goals be obtainable, but then they're like baby step goals that we're progressing over time, because she's going to be seeing me on a regular basis. Ideally, I don't want her getting on the scale at all. I want 7 days off a week and just totally decreasing that over focus on that number. So that's an example of a behavioral goal around a weight behavior. Here's another example. Like, I was seeing somebody else that was coming to see me for an athlete, a competitive tennis player, recreational, and he had some liver enzyme abnormalities because he drank a lot. very fit guy, but he drinks a lot, and he knows he's drinking too much, and he is trying to set goals. And again, I was like, okay, what's obtainable for you? How could we step this alcohol down? Do we want to have days off during the week? Do we want to have less alcoholic beverages on the weekend? I'm not going to tell you can't drink, but let's try to step it down. What's a doable goal that you could say, okay, yeah, I think I can do this? And so he agreed to less drinks on the weekend, stepping it down from 5 drinks to 3 drinks. Again, it might not seem like much, but that could be enough to improve his liver enzymes and his liver health. Just that little change that he would be consistent with. So we have behavioral goals, and then we also have a menu plan that I've devised that's specific to their caloric need, that's based on their body size, whether it be, a big, tall high school basketball player that's trying to gain weight, or a petite dancer that I'm working with that is, half the size of the person that's the tall athlete. I individualize those goals based on the body size. I also do a couple of physical type assessments during my initial session assessments. I obviously check weight, but I also do body composition assessment. And that's really helpful for someone who's trying to lose or gain weight, because you want to know what's realistic for their body type. We have projected weight ranges that have been out there for decades based on height, and even pediatricians and physicians use these, but they're just charts based on height, normal weights for height. They're not looking at body composition, so I'm looking at body composition. So one of my areas of study in graduate school was body composition of athletes, so that's something I integrate into all of my assessments that I do with people. So I feel like I can give them an accurate assessment of what's realistic based on their body build, because someone who's 5'10" and very muscular and someone who's 5'10" and more of a beanpole would have different weight goals, even though they're the same height.
For sure. And so, as far as your business goes, right, obviously there's a lot of learning that goes into the science side of what it is that you're learning about your field. And you start out with your business, it seems like one of those key skills that you've had has been the ability to market yourself and just finding opportunities to present yourself and present your pitch and present your product in front of people. Is that, you think, probably your most important skill over the lifespan of your business, or do you think that there's something else that kind of plays equally?
No, I think I've just getting feedback from other people who have kind of observed me and other professions who have referred to me. They've said that they felt like my marketing was something that they thought was unique. And I think it was just me not being afraid to try different modes of marketing. And just realize, and also too, just observing what other people are doing, always kind of be paying attention. Like, a hard learning curve for me at this age, because I'm on the back end of my career, is all this social media stuff. So, getting my website established, which I did obviously a long time ago, but when that, before people had websites, I was in business before people had websites. So getting the website established was a biggie, and then updating the website to keep up with, the way that it is now and what's appropriate and normal, and then the social media. So I Facebook post on a regular basis, articles that I think would be of interest, relating it to the type of clients that I see. I Instagram post. I have a shopping Instagram where I post products that I like that are trending, that are kind of products that I might recommend for my different clientele. I have not gotten into TikTok and all that stuff, but it's like keeping up with the social media, the electronic marketing methods that are the main way that people do things these days. I've had to keep up with that. And that's a challenge when you're getting older and that's just not what you do. You don't pay attention to as much of that stuff. But you accommodate and you change, and I've been willing to kind of keep up with that. And something I've enjoyed doing that's helped me keep up with that is I mentor younger students. I'm glad to take an intern at any time. If you hear this and you're like somebody that wants to be a nutrition professional in the areas I work in, feel free to contact me. I'm glad to mentor and share how I've gotten to where I am, because I'm on the back end of this. I'm hoping I'll be retiring sometime in the next decade, because I've put a lot of hours in, and I've worn myself out pretty good. I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do, but there is balance that we're all trying to achieve in our lives. I won't be doing this forever. So I take interns on a regular basis. Some of them just meet with me once. Some come and are with me for like a week at a time. Like this week alone, I've had 3 people contact me about possibly doing internships. One wanted a full summer internship. One wanted just one for a week. So I mentor a lot of kids. But what I have them help me do, as much as me helping them, is keep up with the trends. Like, how are people communicating in your age group? Help me with the social media. Help me keep up with this. Like, what are the trending things? I'm learning as much from them as they're learning from me. So I also think something maybe that has helped me is I've been willing to learn the new ways that people are marketing themselves and try to keep up with what is the cultural norm. And as we all age, that's challenging. We're decades apart, and we do things differently. We think differently. Even my admin help that I've had is now much more electronic and virtual. I have a virtual admin. I've had a virtual admin for probably the last 5 years. 20 years ago, that would have been unheard of, to have a virtual admin. That's how people do this now.
Right.
So that's, and actually it works out great. I like it better. I don't have to have the office space for that person. I used to have a big office, 5-suite office, and I had 3 admin in there working part-time. Now I just have 1 virtual admin. So, just keeping up with how things have changed electronically and keeping up with the marketing trends, I think, and just having an openness to learn it and not get stuck in one way of doing it, I think has been part of it.
What do you think's been the most difficult part?
Managing it all. Managing the people, the different personalities. Again, I didn't have a business training, and I'm very into sitting down with the person one-on-one, but the behind-the-scenes management of the day-to-day operations was not something I had a lot of training in. And when I had the larger company and the larger space, it was a lot to manage, and I did it in that capacity for about 10 years, and I downsized, I guess about 6 years ago, to doing the virtual assistant and just having 1 virtual assistant and just having me. I had 5 dietitians working for me at one point when I was at my largest size, and now I'm back down to just me and 1 virtual assistant, and it's much more reasonable. I think that's the bigger challenge. If you're going to have a larger company, you have to be ready to do the management side of that, the personnel management side of that. And I just realized that, also realizing what your limitations are, I realized that was one of my limitations. I'm not great at that, and it's just not something I enjoy doing. I want to be in there with the one-on-one person, helping them with their nutrition or doing my presentations. So I just realized that wasn't the direction I wanted my business to go.
For sure.
So that was my biggest challenge.
Well, what are some of your goals now, with where you are in your business now? Kind of what is the day-to-day like for you, and what are some of your goals?
Well, I actually am forging into a new thing that I just started this year. I actually am doing 2 days a week at my home. Today's one of those days. That's why I was able to come here. And so I see people out of my home. I build a professional office in the front of my house. But 3 days a week, I'm back in an orthopedic clinic setting, and I'm doing a joint combination of still seeing my private clients because I'm bringing them into that setting, which is marketing for them. But I'm also starting to see those orthopedic patients again. So I'm developing a program for this orthopedic practice. So I'm kind of returning back to the very first setting that I worked in 30 years ago, which I'm really excited about. I love working with like-minded sport professionals, the athletic trainers, physical therapists, orthopedic doctors. It was what I originally went into this wanting to do. So now I'm back in that, but they've been great about accommodating my practice and letting me do my practice, as well as starting to develop a nutrition program for them. So that's a new direction I'm going, and it won't be forever. I'm developing this program for them in hopes that younger dietitians who have this interest can come in and they can really expand it into other locations, because it's one of the largest practices in Atlanta. And so I'm just going to develop it, get it going, and train some younger people to take it over. I'd love to do more speaking. I have not done a formal, hardback book. I've got my workbooks, but I'd love to maybe just kind of have some case histories and kind of compile it all into one book. So when I finally slow down and have time to do some writing, and that's also not one of my areas I would call a strong suit. So it will take some work
Oh,
and
yeah.
time and downtime to get that out there, and something I think I can do when I'm not able to maybe do the long hours of a regular work week, when I can slow down. So that's the direction I'm heading.
Oh, that's exciting. And I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you sharing just your perspective and how your diligence in marketing, the things that you've learned since, just deciding to go all in on your business, with our audience is honestly refreshing to hear, because I think that a lot of people hinder themselves with that mindset that there has to be some amount of learning or some things that you ingest, content or learning wise, to be able to start a business and give yourself a chance. And it really slows down a lot of people as far as their business goes, is truly my belief. And the big push for us here is to encourage people to go all in on their business. So I ask you as well, what does it feel like to burn the ship? What does it feel like to go all in on your business and commit to being that entrepreneur and figure out a way to make it work?
Well, it's very rewarding, actually, because one thing about your own business, everything you put in is what you get back. So if you don't put in as much, you're not going to get as much back. So if you go all in, you can reap the benefits of that. And I think I did that. I think I'm a good example of that. I feel comfortable saying I feel like I went all in. I think I've done just about everything I can do with the way that, the type of business I built now. So that's kind of the cool thing, also just kind of controlling your schedule, deciding what directions you want to go. Like, I've got this mixture of speaking, individual consultations, traveling to do some professional sport work. You can pick and choose what you want to do. So I also went in with an approach that was very varied, and knowing I wanted to do a variety of things and not just doing the same thing day in, day out. So when you kind of set those goals and you put out there what you want to do and you follow through on those different dimensions of what you want to do, you can build a variety of different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
keeps things interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does, and you control it. It's like you finally get to embrace who you are deep down and make something exactly like you want. It's a really exciting thing. So, again, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you giving us some of your Friday and sharing what you've shared with our audience. I think it's going to be very beneficial. Give me a couple of weeks. I'll edit it. I'll put it out. You're more than welcome to share it. But I'm
Yeah, I
excited
would
to put
love
it
that.
out. Yeah, I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Cool. Burn the ship.